We should say today because it's Yom Tov Sheni Shalgalut.
Oh, something like
You
that.
say Hallel every day.
Goodness. No, you shouldn't say Hallel every day. You should say the other
Abi
Hallel.
Kara.
Anyway, good morning. Today is April 20th. It's the 20th day of the Omer. It's the 5th of Iyar. And today's daf is Zevachim daf Zayin, and we're picking up somewhere around the top of daf Zayin. Is that right?
I don't know because
we
didn't record it yesterday.
We didn't record yesterday.
No, it was pre-recorded.
Yeah,
pre-recorded.
Yeah.
The end of Vav. The end of daf Vav. I'll try to catch us in. It's kind of a complex issue at the end here. So if we go back to the end of daf Vav, where it says, we're in the discussion of the two different seirim that are brought on Shavuot. There's one seir chatat, which is brought with the regular korban musaf, and there's another seir chatat, or one more, I think, that's brought with the shtei halechem. So you have two different korbanot chatat on Shavuot. So the question was, why did you need that? And maybe the reason why was because you need for a kapara for the averot that happened between the period of hafrasha, of designating the korban, and the time of the shechita. So like from a few lines from the bottom of Vav Amud Bet, the claim, at least, is that by korbanot tzibur, for public sacrifices, the act of shechita is actually what finally designates them to their status. So you wouldn't necessarily make that conclusion that there would be this kind of lag period between the designation and the shechita. So Amar le Rav Yosef Brei de Rav Shmuel le Rav Papa. Umi'it le Rabbi Shimon leiv beit din matnei alehem. Does Rabbi Shimon really hold of the principle that the court can make a conditional designation for the sacrifices that only takes effect once they're actually slaughtered? V'hamar Rav Idi bar Avi Amar Rav Amram Amar Rav Yitzchak Amar Rav Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan taught Timidin shelo hutzrechu letzibur. We had this back in Shavuot in the second parak. Rabbi Yochanan taught that if you have timidin, you have the sheep which are designated to be the korban tamid, which were bought already for the year, let's say Tafshin Ayin Chet. They already bought all of the kvasim for the tamid, and then it's getting to be late Adar, and we have a few extra sheep left over. So what happens? Those are timidim shelo hutzrechu letzibur. They're not needed for the tzibur because starting with the new month of Nisan, from Rosh Chodesh Nisan, we'll have to buy the korban tamid using the funds from the shkalim, which were collected for the coming year. So the leftover korbanot, what are we supposed to do with them? So according to Rabbi Yochanan, timidim shelo hutzrechu letzibur ledivrei Rabbi Shimon ein niftim timimim. Sorry. So according to Rabbi Shimon, they could not be exchanged or redeemed for their value while they're in a state of the tamim, that they don't have any blemishes. According to the chachamim, according to the majority position, you could do that. That is, the debate between Rabbi Shimon and the chachamim is whether the leftover sheep from the previous year, you have to let them get a mum first before you could be podeh, or whether you could be podeh immediately.
So are we still saying, though, that the reason we have two seirim on Shavuot is because there's a possible tuma between
that has to be what Rabbi Shimon would say, because Rabbi Shimon is not of the opinion leiv beit din matnei alehem, that the hafrasha is delayed until the time of shechita. So he sees there is this gap time window during the time when the korban was designated and the time the korban is shechted. And then the question is, okay, so if you shecht one here and one here, then what happens during this time period? You could have another Aveira, and the question will have to revert back.
According, that's really what it's coming from.
Right, and the point is, therefore...
As opposed to, it's just part of, the regular Musaf structure. That's just, what you do.
Right, right. That's the obvious answer. The obvious answer is, the Torah said so. And there are all sorts of strange korbanot that we bring for all sorts of reasons, and we could try to figure out exactly what each one is for. But at the end of the day, there's a list of korbanot, and we bring those korbanot. We don't have to worry about why is this chatat and this olah. If they're communal korbanot, they're just sort of coming. I was actually just thinking about this earlier while I was walking the dog. The idea, every korban musaf except on Shabbat is an exception. Every korban musaf comes with a chatat.
Right.
There's almost this idea of maybe the chatat is not for some other chait. Maybe the chatat is somehow about the audacity of bringing the korbanot, or somehow we feel trepidatious about bringing these korbanot on these holidays. So they're asher tikru otam moadam. We have some responsibility in the designation of the holidays. So maybe there's a fear around the bringing of korbanot on holidays. We got the day wrong or something like that. Maybe that's part of it as well. I'm not sure.
Also, chatas can be to
purify as well, right? At the beginning of Masechet Shavuot, there's this extensive discussion. Of course, on Yom Kippur, especially the chataot that we bring on Yom Kippur are for chatat, for chet, but they're also to cleanse the mizbeach, to cleanse the mikdash. So there's a lot more to be unpacked there. Let's keep going. Ve'od. Ha'abamini Rabbi Yirmiyah of Rabbi Zera. So Rabbi Yirmiyah asked Rabbi Zera, Se'irei hatzeret shekibel daman b'shnei kosot. V'nizrak daman sharishon. So sheni lama huba. So what about Se'irei hatzeret, the same kind of case, the korban chatat that's brought on Shavuot, that the blood was collected in two different containers. That is, and if you look here, the way Rashi explains, Shnei kosot nishchatin ke'echad. The two goats were both slaughtered sort of simultaneously. And there's no opportunity for there to have been a chance impurity or some sin that would have occurred in between the shechita of the first one and the second one, because they were done very proximal to each other. So sheni lama karav. So if you already sprinkled the blood of the first korban, then why do you even need the second one? Because there was no opportunity for tumat mikdash in between the first and second korban. So he says lama huba al tuma she'arua bein zrika shel zeh lazeh. So no, it's possible even to consider that the second zrikat hadam, even though the shechita took place more or less simultaneously, now the time gap we're looking at is between Zrikat Hadam of the first Chatat and Zrikat Hadam of the second Chatat. So what's interesting here is that
like a little obsessive.
It's a little bit obsessive, but the point is,
no, I mean really, like,
no,
you know, like
100%.
Again, like we should go around.
And then we're going to wait
thinking,
4 months until, or we're going to wait 1 month until Rosh Chodesh Tammuz before we bring another Chatat, right?
And why would you need it here, and then why wouldn't you not need it every time you bring it?
Right. So the point, at the end of the day, the real answer is the Shtei Halechem gets the Korban Chatat, and the Korban Musaf gets the Korban Chatat. And that's just how it is. But what they're trying to do here is sort of flesh out, they're trying to provide a rationale. Why did the Torah command us to bring these? Why did God tell us bring these Korbanot if they seem redundant? There are more dangerous answers than that to this question as well. But the question that they're getting at here is, at least the point here to say is that the Zrika, even though the Zrika actually happens after the Shechita, and so therefore we would think, okay, the Hafrasha, the Shechita are important time points for determining the kapara. Here, the Zrikat Hadam actually is connected to the kapara of the korban, and that's what's interesting also to think about. The Zrikat Hadam, the whole point is that the blood has the spiritual power of the korban, or whatever it is, the animal's life force. That's what's bringing about the kapara, and that's what's being described here. So actually, that the Zrikat Hadam, between the two time points for the first korban and the second korban, that would work as well. Aval. Okay, ad kan lo mivayle. So that's not a problem because you still have an answer for that. Ella, asay de la'achar shchita, aval asay de la'achar hafrasha la kami bayle. So the question, so on the one hand, they're sort of saying, okay, that makes sense for things that you did after the shechita, because you shechted both animals, and now we have to say, okay, so there was one zrikat adam, and then I had, waited 15 minutes, and then there was another zrikat adam. And then what about if it was la'achar hafrasha? It really doesn't leave the question so well answered. So that's sort of where we are. So we're sort of left with an unresolved sugya. It doesn't seem particularly of great practical relevance either, but it gives us some tools for thinking about which are the important time points in the korban. Obviously, the hafrasha is important for designating it for its future life. The shechita, of course, and the zrikat hadam, actually very important step for effecting the kapara. Okay, now we get into a new topic. The bulk of this amud is going to be about the korban todah. The korban todah is a subcategory of korban shlamim, but unique about the korban todah, unlike a regular shlamim, is it has a much shorter time to be eaten. A regular shlamim, you get to eat it the day you bring it, the night after, and then the next day, so close to 2 days, or 24 hours plus for a regular shlamim. And korban todah, you only get until midnight of the night after you bring the korban. So you get a very short window of time.
They didn't have refrigeration.
They didn't have refrigeration, certainly. Part of the other piece is korban todah is a cow, the large animal, and it's brought along with 40 loaves of bread, 30 loaves of matzah, of 3 different kinds of matzah, and 1 kind of chametz. Actually, one of the only 2 kinds of korbanot that's brought with chametz. Yeah, that's right.
The midnight is a rabbinic stringency?
Yeah, really, off the top of my head, I think, right, that this is the first Mishnah in Shas, Rabban Gamliel's position is everything that Chachamim told you the Korban has to be eaten by midnight, really you get until Alot HaShachar, but they were machmir for midnight. So if... and the
Yerushalmi actually Paskins that way.
Right, but we're still going to say that until midnight. All of the Mishnayot say until midnight. Okay, so...
It's good to eat meat so early in the morning.
Right. Well, it's late at night, right? You're eating the whole night. Okay, so the question we have here, based on our Mishnah, is going to be what's the interplay between the designation of a Korban Shlamim and Korban Todah? If Todah is a subcategory of Shlamim, is there going to be a problem of overlapping statuses? Is Shinui Kodesh, Shinui Hashem? If we're going to see exactly this case. So Itmar, this was the Amoraic teaching. Todah sheshechata l'shem todat chaveiro. Okay, what if one person, 2 different people show up and they're bringing korban todah, and the kohen, when he does the shechita for one person's todah, has in mind the other person's todah. If you look at what Rashi says about this, it's a little bit of a tricky case to try to parse exactly what's
going on. It's Shinui Bailim, basically.
So you'd think it's Shinui Bailim, but Rashi doesn't say that. Rashi says, Todah sheshechata l'shem todah chaveiro, lo sheshechata al menat sheyitkaper ba mi she'eino ba'aleha. That is not Shinui Bailim.
Well, Todah doesn't mitkaper anyway.
But he says, well, we'll get to that also. Ella Shinui Kodesh. Okay, he says it's Shinui Kodesh. It's a change of the designation of the korban. Shahayta l'ruvein todah l'shimon todah acheret v'shachad todato shel zeh l'shem todato shel zeh. Okay, and that you had in mind. It's like what and Rashi concludes, "V'hu hadin b'shochet chatat chelev l'shem chatat dam." That is, that 2 different people show up with their korbanot, and the kohen has in mind not that it's the wrong person, but that I'm doing this korban. I thought the korban was Shimon's todah that I'm doing for Shimon, and instead had in mind I'm doing Reuven's todah for Shimon. There's not Shinui Baalim; it's a change of the.
I understand it is Shinui Baalim.
Okay, but Rashi doesn't think that it's Shinui Bailim. I think the main shot is that it should be Shinui Bailim, but it's going to get caught up.
Even when he describes Shinui Bailim, I understand.
He says not Shinui Bailim.
It's not an orange, really an apple, although it's orange and it's orange and.
Here, David has a footnote.
Just one sentence for it. He intended Reuven's Todah should assume the sacred qualities of Shem's Todah, though it should remain Reuven's offering.
Right, it's still designated according to the owner, but that it somehow has the status of the other animal. It's a little bit of a finer case. I'm not sure. Anyway, okay. The point is, this is a kind of a strange case. We're going to see some of the drashot are a little bit strange as well.
Do you understand Rashi?
No.
Okay.
I was just wanted to read the Rashi so you get the sense that the plain shot is that it should be Shinui Bailim, but then Rashi obviously doesn't feel comfortable with that. Okay, Itmar Todah sheshachata l'shem todah chaveiro. Rabba Amar Keshira. So Rabba says that that's okay. That is Keshira for us here still means actually that it was Alula Bailim l'shem chova. It actually counts for your obligation. You took a neder, I'm going to bring a korban todah, and then you brought your korban todah, you fulfilled the obligation. Okay. And Rav Chizda Amar Psula. Rav Chizda says it's possible that is the korban is kosher, but that it didn't fulfill your obligation. So Rabba Amar Keshira Todah l'shem todah nishchata. It was brought l'shem todah. It was designated the same level of korban. Rav Chizda Amar Psula l'shem shlamim. Amar Psula l'shem shlamim didei nishchata abayina. You need to have the shechita actually for your own shlamim. So again, it sounds like it's talking about Shinui Bailim, but that's why Rashi is a difficult Rashi. Okay, Amar Rabba. So Rabba has to respond to Rav Chizda. So mina minila. So it says hakrivo at zivcho, his korban. So Abba Chanina Mar Mishum Rabbi Eliezer Balanei Todah sheshechata l'shem shlamim keshira. So the Tanaim are discussing what about the exchange, not a case of 2 different korbanot Todah, but a Todah with a shlamim. So that interchange. So if I brought Todah sheshechata l'shem shlamim, I had in mind I'm bringing a korban shlamim instead, keshira, because Todah is a subcategory of shlamim. So shlamim is a more inclusive category. You're able to, therefore, it still counts as the correct machshava. Shlamim shenishchatu l'shem Todah. But if I brought a regular korban shlamim and had in mind that it was a korban Todah, pisulim, those are disqualified because in that case you've designated it for a more specific type of korban, which it actually isn't.
So what happened to our Mishnah though? The Yeah.
So
like, why are we asking this question?
So here we're talking about, was it Ola L'Bayla M'Shem Chova? That's what we're talking about.
But we know that already. Our mission is
but here we're talking about some kind of shlamim, and it's some kind of a shlamim. So now we're within a primary category, and now we're talking about finer distinction. Maybe that's not even going to reach the level of disqualification, even to not count as for fulfilling.
Because you still have in mind a shlamim.
You still have in mind some kind of a shlamim. So the point is that the Toda sheshachata l'shem shlamim kshira, 100% kshira, totally fulfilled, and shlamim sheshchatu l'shem Toda is psulim, because that's a disqualified mashab. Uma hifrish bein zelazah. So Toda kriya shlamim. The Toda is considered a korban shlamim. The ein shlamim kriyin Toda, but regular korban shlamim is never called Toda, which makes sense. Okay, so shlamim l'shem Toda psula. If I bring a shlamim l'shem Toda, then I've disqualified it. Ha Toda l'shem Toda kshira. So from here, Rabbah can infer from this whole Tanaitic discussion about interchanging shlamim and Toda. He says, oh, so Toda l'shem Toda kshira. That means even if I had in mind the wrong korban Toda, whether it was a shinu bailim or that it was just that's why shinu bailim doesn't. That's why Rashi doesn't like it. Is because what we're talking about here is shinu kodesh. I had in mind a different korban. So the point is, Ruvain's korban was designated for crossing the Atlantic Ocean, and Shimon's korban Toda was for getting better from hypertension or something. So then they each had a different korban, and then the Kohen had in mind Ruvain's is Ruvain's and Shimon's is Shimon's, but he interchanged which korban was for what, perhaps, or something like that, the designation of the korban. Okay, so my lav dichavrei. So does that really mean that it refers specifically to someone else's korban? Well, didei. So Rav Chizda can defend himself against Rabbah's point and say, no, it really just meaning about one person. About one person who brought two different korbanot Toda and they were interchanged, that would be allowed, but not for two different people. About the chavrei, so we say my psula. So my psula. Adetani shlamim l'shem Toda psula. Once we've said that shlamim l'shem Toda is disqualified, litnei Toda l'shem Toda. The Midrash could have included a mention of Toda l'shem Toda as well, because if we're going to teach that shlamim l'shem Toda is disqualified, and it left this excluded middle case ambiguous, kol shekein shlamim l'shem Toda. If it would have said Toda l'shem Toda, then I could have obviously inferred that if I had a shlamim l'shem Toda, they would be disqualified, because I actually had a totally different korban in mind. Shlamim l'shem Toda al didei. I could have thought miditoda kriya shlamim nami kriya Toda. I have to use that limud to undermine the possibility of understanding that just like a Toda is called shlamim, maybe we would have thought that shlamim is also called korban Toda, and they would be totally interchangeable.
Why would you thought that?
Because maybe once that's the way the Gemara says it. So miditoda kriya shlamim. Once the Torah already calls a Toda a korban shlamim, so maybe I would just think the terms are interchangeable. Right? Maybe I would think, oh, so the Torah calls it sometimes shlamim, sometimes Toda, and there are certain circumstances where you're supposed to bring this korban, but not that there's any real legally meaningful distinction between the two types of korbanot. Besides, okay, so this one you have a shorter length of time to eat, and this one you have to bring more bread with it or whatever. But basically, they're the same thing.
What's the purpose of the shlamim?
Purpose of any regular korban shlamim usually is just I wanted to bring a korban, or I decided to bring a korban.
So just a free will.
Usually usually translated in English, free will offering.
Yeah.
A korban shlamim.
Just like
the only
Kiddush, someone gives a lot.
Exactly. The only times we have a mandatory korban shlamim, we have a communal korban shlamim on Shavuot. We have korban Toda, which is a bit of a debate how mandatory it is, but under certain circumstances, the Gemara seems to say that you have some kind of an obligation to bring a korban Toda.
Well, for cheesecake.
Not the cheesecake, then you can't have if you have the korban Toda, you can't have any more cheesecake. That's the problem. Okay.
So basically, so how Toda l'shem Toda kshira means it's l'chabri, because otherwise we're be going out of its
That's
way.
What Rabbah says.
Which is why according to this opinion is not redundant or superfluous, given the Mishnah that said is already kasher.
Right.
You may have thought Toda is different.
Right. You may have thought Toda is different. And what Rav Chizda can come back and say is, no, the point is you may have had this spurious assumption that Toda and shlamim are totally equivalent terms, and that's what this limud is coming to teach. But don't come to think that actually if you interchange two different Todot, that you've gotten yourself off the hook.
So it's easier it seems, to exchange Toda and shlamim than two different Toda.
No. The point, not that far. That is, right, we still have the halacha that if you shechted a regular shlamim, l'shem toda, it's disqualified, and to the extent that it doesn't count for the obligation to have brought the korban. You have to bring another shlamim. So the point, Rabbah and Rav Chizda's debate is, does the designation between two different todot, is that problematic or not? And the point of this limud here is to say what would have been the rationale one way or the other, why we would have said that it was disqualified. Okay, Amar Rava. Now we have numerous short little teachings of Rava in quick succession. Okay, Amar Rava. Chatat sheshechata l'shem chatat keshira l'shem ola psula. So this seems like a bit of a redundant teaching, seeing we've read the Mishnah already, and we saw that chatat was the one that is the exception to the rule. But nonetheless, if you brought a korban chatat with chatat in mind, it's kosher. And l'shem ola psula, if you had in mind that it was a korban ola, you've disqualified. So my time of v'shachadota lechatat. So you have to shecht the korban chatat lechatat. It has to be a chatat. Amar Rachmana v'hari chatat l'shem chatat nishchata l'shem ola psula. Okay, fine. Amar Rava. Another teaching of Rava. If I brought a korban chatat for another person who was obligated to bring korban chatat, it's become disqualified. So if that is some other person, I had some other person in mind for this korban instead, and I had in mind a person who is mechuyav chatat, that is, they had to bring their own chatat, and I brought somebody else's chatat for them, it becomes disqualified because I had in mind the wrong owner. This is kind of like a mina machrivla that we had early in the Masachet. The notion that they're very close to each other in their obligation, so that's why it disqualifies. But a person who is mechuyav ola, so you wouldn't normally think that you are mechuyav ola, because an ola is usually not brought as an obligatory. But in this case. But for an individual, so the notion that's going to come up on today's daf, at least, right? We say bitul aseh or lav hanitak aseh. There are certain averot that you would bring a korban olah in some sense, but it's not exactly a chiyuv to bring it. So it's a little bit of a strange way of putting it. So my time, your korban that you designated for a certain sin, you can't have it transferred to someone else for their sin. So your friend is comparable to you. So that is the kind of chavero that's disqualified, is the type of chavero who is equivalent to you in his need to bring a korban chatat. But some other person who didn't do any iser karet and doesn't have to bring korban chatat, then they're not considered chavero to be excluded. We saw these drashot already. Okay. Ve'amar Rava. This is now number 3. Right? Rava chatat sheshchata al mi she'eino mechuyav klum psula. What if I had in mind someone who is not obligated to bring any korban? We said if you're mechuyav olah, if you're someone who had a bitul aseh that he was trying to get kapara for, and you accidentally brought the korban chatat for him, that it would be okay. But if you're einu mechuyav klum, it's psula, then it's disqualified. She'ein lecha adam b'Yisrael she'einu mechuyav aseh. But there's no such person, because every person in Israel has to bring korban olah anyway. So it's not really a problem. V'amar Rava chatat mechaperet al chayavei aseh. Rava teaches that a chatat can even be mechaper on chayavei aseh. That is, if the chatat was accidentally brought on behalf of not the owner who designated it for his chiyuv karet, but for some other person who brought a korban for an chiyuv aseh, it sort of can fill in for that role as well. That is, normally we would think the olah is the korban that you're supposed to bring for a mitzvah aseh, but in this case, chatat mechaperet al chayavei aseh mikal v'chomer. Yeah.
So when Rava said to the second teaching, so I'm trying to understand this, that if I shech a chatat for someone who's mechayav an olah,
yes,
it's kshera. So we reinterpret our Mishnah to say chutz min chatat only in a case.
So chutz min chatat is shinui bailim. Is that the wrong person in not the wrong person? Sorry, that you had in mind.
Yeah, the wrong person. Right. He's saying shinui.
Mishnah says. No, because the Mishnah is talking about Shinui Kodesh. I designate the wrong, right? Shelo Lishman. I brought it for the wrong korban. So if you brought me your korban chatat, and I said, oh, this is a beautiful ola, and I brought it as an ola instead. That's why it doesn't mechaper your korbanot, your karet, because it's the wrong.
I'm sorry, say it again.
The Mishnah is talking about Shinui Hashem. I brought it for the wrong wrong korban.
Okay, but Rava says that if I
This is shinui bailim.
but he says oh Rava chatat mishachuyav chatat psula mishachuyav ola kshera. So it's also the wrong korban, no?
It's not that it's the wrong ola. No. I brought it as a korban chatat for the wrong person, a person who happened not to be mechuyav chatat. I brought I bring Ruvain's korban on behalf of Shimon, and Shimon doesn't have any chataot in his scorecard. So, but he's mechuyav olah because he broke mitzvah.
So I use this. So this is a chatat. I thought it was an olah. I sacrificed it as an olah. That's what we're saying.
That's what the Mishnah is saying. That's where it would be. It would be puzzle, because there you change because chutz min chatat because chatat has to be associated with the.
And Rava's case is what?
Rava's case. So Rashi says
the second one was
that Rava's case is chatat shechata al mi shemechuyav chatat psula. If I bring a korban chatat for another person who is it's disqualified. Al mi shemechuyav olah kshira. For if it's someone who's not mechuyav if I did a shinui bailim, but into a person who is not chayav in a korban chatat.
Meaning it's a chatat, but I'm thinking it's my chatat, but I'm thinking it's
Shimon's chatat, and turns out Shimon doesn't have any aveirot that he would have to bring a korban chatat.
But he did bring in korban. Shimon.
No, he lives wherever. Your name is Michael Waxman. I thought your name was Michael Greenstein, and Michael Greenstein is some other guy who is not have to bring a korban chatat. That's kind of thing what's going on. So the Kohen has in mind a different person. Right?
Should that be invalid?
So if it was a person who's mechuyav chatat, who also had to bring korban chatat, it's disqualified because that's what the Torah calls chaveiro. That is, well, the Torah doesn't say chaveiro. The Midrash says chaveiro, right? That it says vechiper alav. The Torah says it has to come to atone for your sin. Right. So alav comes to exclude other people, but only which type of people? Only chaveiro hadomeli didei. That is another person comparable to me. That is another person who should be also bringing korban chatat. The problem is mixing up. Two different people are waiting online to bring their korban chatat, and I brought it on behalf of the wrong person. But if there's some person who's not chayav in a korban chatat at all, he's totally outside the parsha, then it's fine because it's not going to interfere. That's it. Mina machriba. The closer it is, the more interference there is.
Yeah. So I shefted it for somebody else.
I shefted it on behalf of Michael Greenstein.
But I still thought, but as a chatat.
They didn't have last name.
But as a chatat.
Right. I brought a korban chatat as a korban chatat on behalf of a person who's not required to bring korban chatat. It's fine. And Rava adds mechaper al chayavei asay. That is retroactively, it will be mechaper on mitzvot asay that such a person brought.
When we say chayav ola, let's say he's not chayav anything. Would that be better or worse?
Well, that's what Rava says. Is that ein lecha adam Yisrael, right? Where's the line? Everyone violates mitzvot asay all the time. We know that. That's why as the halacha is as soon as you do tshuva for it, you're forgiven for it because mitzvot asay, bittul asay, relatively low level violation.
So misha chayav ola then is not literal because
you're not chayav to bring the korban.
Right. No, but I mean, but even what one a second before, right? It still work.
What do you mean?
Like Greenstein and Greenstein. He thought it again. Ola, whatever. Okay. Right? It still work. This chatat and this ola.
Because on behalf of some other person, but it's a person who is mechuyav ola. Yeah. Okay. The hamara. The second to last line. Hamara. The chatat shechata mishum mechuyav chatat psula. If I brought chatat on behalf of another person who is chayav in a chatat, that's disqualified. Mishum mechuyav ola kshira. The same principle. So kami bayala mechapera mikufya mechapera. So the point is that it doesn't atone fully for the violation, but mikufya mechapra. Rashi says, right, chatat asay. The korban chatat can still partially atone for the mitzvah asay. Okay, fine. Yeah,
that's just weird.
Well, that's sort of the point. Is the chatat, the purifying, atoning powers of the korban chatat are more powerful than the korban olah. So it's a kind of a kal vachomer. Okay.
Yeah, that I get, but the idea that it's I would think the kal vachomer would be that it completely atones for it without any.
No, but the point is just that the partial is to say that bringing in what is it?
What's kufia?
Kufia is like a residue, no? Like partially, basically. What I thought this is saying is mechaper mikufia mechaper, that it's partial atonement for the person who's mechuyav olah, who has the korban chatat brought for him, still gets a partial atonement. It's not, but meaning that you don't get a full atonement from korban olah anyway, right? Because this is what Rava's next teaching, right? Dama Rava olah shechata shelo lishma asur lizrok dama shelo lishma. Fine. The next point is that if you did the shechita shelo lishma, then the later avodot, like the zrika, you also can't do not lishma. You have to do it lishma as best as possible. So ibayit ema kara, ibayit ema svar. There are two different reasons for this. One based on a pasuk and one based on logic. So ibayit ema kara, the one based on the pasuk, it says motza sefatecha tishmor ve'asita. Right? We had this already. The ibayit ema sevara mishum dishaneba. So you have to do as best as possible what you're trying to do, and you have to do as best as possible what you're trying to do, both based on the pasuk and based on the sevara. So here, the sevara and the pasuk are aligned. Sometimes we say, "Kra lama li svarahu." Why do we need a pasuk if it's based on sevara? That's what we have two times, I think, in the Gemara. Only very extreme cases, and both times they're rejected. But interesting students. Okay. Chidureish Pirka, like what appears earlier in our Masechet. Usually you don't see this Chidureish Pirka. It's interesting. It's like a very self-aware Gemara. They know they already wrote about it. Amar Rava, another teaching of Rava. Ola haba le'acharmita shechata b'shinui kodesh pisula. So Ola that was brought after the owner died. Okay. So it doesn't count for if it was brought with Shinui Kodesh, then the heirs have to bring another one. It doesn't fulfill the requirement. Bishuni Bailim Kshera. De'im Bailim Lacharmita. But if it was brought with Shinui Bailim after the owner had died, then it's fine because there's no such thing as the owner. That is, the owner himself no longer is alive. The heirs have a responsibility to bring the korban that was already designated. But so there's no a need for the korban to be associated with the owner after he's passed away. Yeah.
Well, that brings up the issue. If I pointed a sheep and say Zo'ola,
yeah,
in a certain sense, that's not really my sheep anymore. But
no,
yet,
it's still your sheep.
But yet, this is really saying that it is my sheep.
It is your sheep. This is a point which is developed already in Tosfot, and really Reb Chaim brought it to the fore. Mm-hmm. The difference between two different types of hektish. There's hektish, which is a designation bedek habayit, which means that it becomes the corporate financial property of the Beit HaMikdash. I take this table and I make it hektish. Then it's going to be sold by the Beit HaMikdash, and they'll use the money for Beit HaMikdash things. If I take an animal, which could be brought as a korban, or even some other things, flour and oil and things like that, and I designate them for the Beit HaMikdash, then because they could be brought on the Mizbeach, they're designated as Kedushat Haguf. They're actually meant to be brought as korbanot. And the point is there's a difference between Kedushat Damim and Kedushat Haguf. And Kedushat Haguf means actually, and there's Sugyot and Bava Kama about this, is very interesting, but basically that Kedushat Haguf still belongs to the owner, but the owner has a responsibility to bring it as a korban. Things that are Kedushat Damim belong to the Beit HaMikdash, and the Beit HaMikdash will sell them and use the money for other things. So those are two totally different types of hektish. One is it belongs to me, but I have a responsibility to bring the korban. And one is it no longer belongs to me. I gave it as a gift to the corporate entity of the Beit HaMikdash. Okay, so that sounds like Rava thinks in Bailim Lacharmita. Rav Pinchas Brei Rav Ami Amar Yesh Bailim Lacharmita. So Rav Pinchas Brei Rav Ami disagrees, and he thinks that they're actually the designation of the owner is still in effect even after the owner has died. So Amar le Rav Ashi Rav Pinchas Brei Rav Ami. So Rav Ashi said to him, Davka Kamar. Yesh Bailim Lacharmita, Ubaila Atuti Ola Achariti. So when you say Yesh Bailim Lacharmita, that the designation of who is the owner still is meaningful after the owner has died, what do you mean by that? Do you mean Ubaila Atute Ola Achariti? Do the heirs have to bring another Korban Ola on their father's behalf after he's died because the first one got messed up? Or is it just what you're saying that if the owner, the original owner who had died, had multiple chiyuvei aseh, and he wanted to bring extra olot, that they could do that? Is how far are you willing to say that yesh bailim la'acharmita means that the original korban was disqualified and needs to be repaired a second time around? So Amar Lei.
Why
Yep.
can't someone express Thanksgiving posthumously?
Well, it's not about expressing thanksgiving, it's about bringing the Korban Ola. So here, the assumption, at least, is the Korban Ola is being brought for a mitzvah aseh, a violation of a mitzvah aseh. Of course, in our mind, we read a Sefer Vayikra and we think, oh, a Korban Ola is also, if you just decide you want to bring a Korban Ola, you bring a Korban Ola. So that's at least the orientation that they have, is the assumption is that it's about brought for a mitzvah aseh. So Amar Lei Davka Kamina. He says, I really think it's Davka. Davka meaning the first one. So ba'ila atute ola achariti. That is, if it was messed up by shinui bailim in the first time, then the heirs have to bring another korban ola. The Amar Rava, another teaching of Rava. Ola doronhi. The ola is actually considered to be a doron, a present. Okay, and look at the top tosfot. Afalgav the asay mechaperet yoter mechatat the hamechapera coming by. The designation of the ola as a doron is, even though the ola has sort of some power to be mechaper for mitzvah aseh, really, it's not really about kapara. Really, the korban ola is a doron. It's giving a present to God. So this is exactly kind of that distinction, which is that you sort of have both elements of the role of the korban ola.
And where did he get forgiven? What was
who?
If the person, it says here, if ola is a gift offered to Hashem, this is a note from is offered to Hashem after the person has been forgiven for his transgression.
Well, I don't know about after. It's just a gift. Meaning, look what Rashi says. Rashi says, "Ola doron hi eina ba'a lechaper al aseh kapara mamash ela achar shekapara tshuva al aseh." Once you did tshuva for your mitzvah aseh, but even there, still the association is with the mitzvah aseh. I don't think Rav is actually saying that. At some point, Rav is just saying, "You want to bring korban ola? Great, bring korban ola." He said, "Ein lecha adam Yisrael she'eino mechuyav aseh." Right? Every person has violated a mitzvah aseh. So you sort of have the freedom to bring this korban when you want to. Okay.
So when do we know when tshuva achieves the atonement?
Yeah.
Or when do we know that we need to bring up?
Well, every sin that you do, you need to do tshuva for it, and sometimes you have an obligation to bring a korban for it as well. But the korban chatat is never going to work unless you do tshuva also, right? Like you do vidui on the korban. So all of these kind of things, tshuva is the most important element. I mean, you learn, the end of Yoma and Rambam Tzachot Tshuva, he discusses there at the beginning, like the first or second parak, he talks about the role that the korban plays in the atonement and certain things. But the korban itself usually has actually bringing the korban in some metaphysical sense maybe affects some additional level of atonement, but generally the tshuva is really the most important thing. We say here, what Amarava Ola Doron. So what case are we talking about? Like a tshuva. So are we talking about a case where you didn't do tshuva? So Zevachim7 toeva. Then a wicked person who brings a korban is considered toeva, as it's considered abominable. If you did tshuva, so if you did a mitzvah, you violated a mitzvah aseh. That is, you didn't wear tefillin, you didn't put up a mezuzah on your door, whatever. So you do tshuva for it. Say, God, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to, and I'm going to do better next time. So then, lo zaz misham ad shemochalim lo. God immediately forgives you before you even take a step. That is, when you're right there, immediately you've been forgiven. And therefore, the korban olah actually never needs to affect kapara in any real sense for mitzvah aseh, because mitzvah aseh you've already been forgiven for, and therefore it's just being given as a gift. Okay. So Tani Nami Hachi, it was taught similarly in the Braita. Amrim Shimon Chatat Lama Ba. So why do you bring korban chatat? Lama ba lechaper. The whole purpose of a korban chatat is to atone for your sins. Ella lama ba lifnei ola. So why do you bring korban chatat before your korban ola? That is this week's parsha especially. You have lots of people who have to bring both a chatat and an ola, a metzora, yoledet, all sorts of people, right? Echad lechatat, echad leola, right? You bring the chatat first. So why? Rabbi Shimon says, let paraklit shenichnas. That is, one of the king's courtiers goes to visit the king. So ritza paraklit nichnas dorona harab. So first you have to appease the king for what you did wrong, and then once you've been forgiven and you're allowed to enter in, then you can bring a gift as well to say, "Oh, I love you so much. Thank you." So you say, "Please forgive me," before you say your gratitude and your thanks and your appreciation. So you bring the korban chatat before the korban olah. And that's often why you see them paired together. That is, there's a sort of different sides of the same coin. Chatat is taking away something bad. Olah is adding something good, and they very often come together. Okay.
And the chatat is always first.
And the chatat is always brought first. Okay. The next clause in our Mishnah is a discussion about the Pesach and the Chatat. The Korban Pesach will be the next discussion. We'll get as far as we can now, and the rest we'll try to do tomorrow as well. Like I said, this was a long daf. Okay, Pesach. So the Mishnah had said, Chutz min ha-Pesach ve'ha-Chatat. That is, every Korban. The Mishnah had said, if you bring, Kol ha-Zevachim7 nizbechu shelo lishmam kshirim, ela shelo adu labayla mishim chova, chutz min ha-Pesach ve'ha-Chatat. Ha-Pesach bizmano ve'ha-Chatat bechol zman. That is the Pesach at bizmano, whether that's on the 14th of Nisan, whether it's only in the afternoon of the 14th, whether even the morning of the 14th. But if I brought a Korban Pesach with some other Korban in mind, then it's totally disqualified. It's not just that it was a kosher Korban and retroactively didn't fulfill my obligation, but it actually becomes totally disqualified. Okay, so the Gemara says, Pesach minalan. Where do I learn this rule about the Korban Pesach? Dichtiv, Shamor et chodesh ha'aviv ve'asita Pesach. So the month of Aviv, you have to do the Pesach. Sheyihu kol asiyotav l'shem Pesach. Every action for this Korban has to be done with a positive lishma, not just, and certainly if it was then disqualified with a different Korban in mind, then you've violated that requirement. So there's a special requirement by the Korban Pesach, the Asita Pesach. You have to do the Pesach. Every action has to be done with the Korban Pesach in mind. So Eshkechan Shinui Kodesh. That makes sense in terms of designating for a different Korban, for Korban Shlamim or Korban Chatat or something. Shinui Bailim Minalan. What about if I brought the Korban Pesach for the wrong owner? Dirchtiv ve'amartam zevach Pesach hu shitei zevicha l'shem Pesach. So the pasuk says you have to say this is the Zevach Pesach. This is the Pesach sacrifice. So does that mean it has to be Zvicha L'Shem Pesach? Even Eno Inlan Shinu Kodesh. So if I already learned Shinu Kodesh that from Ve'asita Pesach, so Zevach Pesach teaches me Tenehu Inyan L'Shinui Bailim. So then I use that to learn that it has to be designated only for its owner. Korban Pesach also has an interesting, unique rule about the Bailim as opposed to other Korbanot, which is there has to be the people who are going to be eating the Korban Pesach have to be in mind as well, not just the person who owns it, but all of the Chabura who will be eating it that evening have to have been in mind that the person who bought it has them in mind that he's bringing the Korban on their behalf. That is, it's one Korban brought for a large group, and therefore it's a little bit unique. So Eshkechan limits le'akev minalan. So I understand that that's a positive requirement, but how do I know that it's ma'akev? We know that in Kodshim we have this general rule that shina hakatuv le'akev, that everything that's repeated now twice, duplicated, is because it creates that if you don't do it, then it was disqualified. So it creates a higher level of threshold to prove that something is actually necessary, not just mandatory, but necessary. So Amar Krav v'zavachta Pesach l'Adonai Elohecha. So v'zavachta Pesach l'Adonai Elohecha also means you have to v'zavachta, you have to bring the Korban, and it has to be brought as a Pesach. That is, you have to have in mind that it's for the Korban Pesach. So Matkif Rav Safra challenged this based on a logical question. So hi v'zavachta l'hachi hudata, is that what you were using the word v'zavachta to mean? Hi, mivayle lichid Rav Nachman. You need it to teach what Rav Nachman taught. Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba Baravua, minayin motar Pesach shekarev shlamim. How do I know that leftover Korban Pesach, that is the sheep, was meant to be a Korban Pesach? It was bought to be a Korban Pesach, and it's hanging out. 14th of Nisan comes, 14th of Nisan goes. It's the end of Pesach now, whatever. Or it's Chol HaMoed. So now, how do I know that an animal which had been designated as a Korban Pesach could be brought as a shlamim? Shene'emar v'zavachta Pesach l'Adonai Elohecha tzon uvakar. You can bring the Korban Pesach as a sheep or a cow. So v'halo ein Pesach ba ela minech kasavim minech vasim minayizim. But I know the Korban Pesach can only be a sheep, not a cow. Mikan lemotar haPesach sheyu ledavar haba min hatzon min habakar. That leftover Korban Pesach animals could be redesignated as something which could be either sheep or cattle, therefore Korban Shlamim. Mind you, Shlamim. So that's Rav Nachman's teaching. That is V'zavachta Pesach l'Adonai Elohecha tzon uvakar comes to teach me that the leftover animals from the Korban Pesach could be used as a Shlamim. And therefore, I don't have that as a Shina Katuv La'akev, a second verse teaching me about Shinui Bailim. Ella Amar Rav Safra. Rav Safra has to say instead, V'zavachta Pesach l'chil Rav Nachman. So V'zavachta Pesach comes to teach what Rav Nachman taught, that it could be brought as a shlamim. Shamor et Chodesh Ha'aviv l'mitzvah. And the pasuk Shamor et Chodesh Ha'aviv, the Asita Pesach, comes to teach me the mitzvah, the requirement that it has to be l'shem Pesach. Beshinui Kodesh ve'amartem Zevach Pesach be'shinui Bailim. And the ve'amartem Zevach Pesach is about Shinui Bailim, the mitzvah. Who la'akev bein hacha v'hacha eshkechan zvicha. So how do I learn la'akev? So because both of these bein hacha lahacha ve'eshkechan zvicha, all of them mention zvicha, the shechita. Sha'ar avodot minalan. How do I know all of the other avodot of the korban? Ho'il v'gali gali. Once the Torah has revealed this principle about the shechita, so we apply the same principle across the board for the korban pesach. Oh, I saw the recorder here. I didn't. Recording it on YouTube, so I'll have to pull the thing. Okay. Ravashi said, Ho'il v'gali gali lo amrina. We don't say that once it's been made clear in one context, we can extend it to the other three avodot. Lo amrinan. Ella avodot minalan. Where do I learn the other three avodot from? That they have to be l'shem pesach, for the korban pesach. Dichtiv zot ha-torah la'olav v'lamincha. What is it? Right? So it doesn't mention Pesach, but anyway. So at the day that God commanded the Jewish people to bring their sacrifices, so though that, right, their korbanot, so the korbanot that really belong to you more than any other are the Bechor, Maser, and Pesach, the three lowest level Kedusha korbanot, right? If you have in mind, everyone should learn korbanos in the morning. You learn Parak Hey of Zevachim very well. So the Mishnah Ezu Mikoman, starting from the most holiest Kodshe Kodshim, and then going to Chatat, and then Ola, Asham, Shlamim, and then after Shlamim we have Toda and El Nazir, which are sort of second level, kind of like a Shlamim level, and then the last Mishnah dealing with the Bechor, Maser, and Pesach. Bechor, Maser, and Pesach are the lowest level Kedusha korbanos. So those three, and because they're most associated with the owner. The Bechor, it belongs to me, and I have to give it to the Kohen. The Maser, I get to eat myself. There's a strange ritva in Masech Shabbat. And Pesach, also, it's mine. I have to eat it myself. I share it with my whole family, whatever. The sense that it belongs to you even more. So that's why it's called Korbanehem. So Hikshua Katuv L'Shlamim. So that pasuk connects the idea of those three, the Kodshim Kalim, with the Shlamim. So Ma Shlamim, Ben Shinu Kodesh, Ben Shinu Bailim, Ba'inan L'Mitzvah, Af Kol, Ben Shinu Kodesh, Ben Shinu Bailim, L'Mitzvah. So we have set up the first part, which is that there's a requirement that they have to be done Lishma. Ukishlamim, and they're comparable to Shlamim. In what way? Ma Shlamim ben Zvicha ben Shara Vodos lo chalak vehem lemitzvah. So there's no distinction by the Korban Shlamim whether it has to be done lishma between the Shechita and the other three avodos, Kabbalah, Halacha, and Zrika. So Af Pesach lo tachlok bo ben Zvicha l'Shara Vodos. You shouldn't distinguish between the Shechita and the other three avodos. Le'akev. So where do I learn that it's la'akev? That it's actually, if I didn't do it lishma, the Korban is disqualified. Ella, who, lamali. So why does it say who? So Chiditani, Nemar Pesach, who, Bishchita la'akev. So it says the word who, Pesach who, so Bishchita la'akev. So that tells me that the Shchita, if I don't have in mind that it's a Pesach, when I'm doing the Shchita, that it's la'akev, actually disqualified. Aval Asham, lo Nemar Behu. Korban Asham, interestingly enough, doesn't use the word who. Ella, le'achar haktara imurim. So it actually comes to teach that the Korban Asham as well, if the Korban Asham afterward, one of the steps, which is not one of the four avodot, is burning the fats on the Mizbeach. So Korban Asham that you post facto didn't burn the fats on the Mizbeach, actually it's totally kosher and you didn't disqualify the Korban Asham in that case. So on the one hand, the word who by the Korban Pesach comes to teach me that it's me'akev to have Korban Pesach done lishma. And on the other hand, the absence of the word who in the context of the Korban Asham comes to teach that if the Korban Asham, you didn't bring the Emurim to the Mizbeach, that retroactively is still okay. Charlie, take the question.
The Pesach doesn't have the portions that are burned on the altar.
No, Korban Pesach, the only certain Korban Pesach, no, the chaylev, the real inner chaylev has to still go on the Mizbeach, pretty sure. But none of it doesn't have any pieces of meat that go on the mizbeach.
And it doesn't have the gifts that are separated for the kohanim.
No, there's nothing that goes to the kohanim.
The owner
gets
eats it with
everything.
his friends
Right.
and family.
The normal rule for a korban shlamim is the shok and the chazeh go to the kohen. But with the korban pesach, there's no parts that go to the kohen. Actually, I heard one interpretation. I forget who said this. One interpretation of the word shlamim. Why is it called a korban shlamim? Because it brings shalom. Why? Because everyone gets a piece, as if, right? Part of it goes to the mizbeach, part of it goes to the kohen, and part of it goes to the owner. Every other korban, right, a korban chatat, goes to the mizbeach and goes to the kohen, but the owner doesn't get to eat it because you're atoning for your sin. You did something wrong, so you have to give it for somebody else. Korban ola, nobody eats it, right? And because the korban
Hashem
pesach
eats it.
That's the point, meaning that it doesn't go to any human to eat it. So korban shlamim, there's a part that goes to the mizbeach, part that goes to the kohen, and part that goes to the owner. It's like one happy family. All right, wonderful. Everyone had a good day.
Yashar Koach.
It's a long daf. We got through it.
We got through it.
More or less.
Didn't have